Alright y'all, same as usual. Let's just start right off the bat. This is something I discovered a while back, but never found a good video format to say it. But with Simon or Richter, if you pause on the frame that you reset training mode, you can briefly see their whip in their hand, fully erect, for a split second. It's easier to see Simon's because it's a little bit thicker. Also, this isn't really a secret tech, but I see that a lot of folk didn't know you could do this. But if you hold down the jab button with the Belmonts, you'll be able to move their whip around freely. I think it's kind of useless as the range isn't that good, especially compared to their projectiles, but there you go. While we're speaking of Simon though, Kelly Hurdley here is telling me that Simon can have a different line in one of his victory screens, depending on who he's fighting. Normally it's this.
Simon, I vanquish the darkness!
However, if he fights anyone who uses darkness, or is kinda evil or whatever, he'll say,
Simon, win the darkness!
I decided to look this up of course, and according to the wiki, he's actually saying to darkness, which still feels a bit awkward, but apparently the translation is supposed to be more something like turn to darkness, which I guess makes more sense. This question from Just Some Nerd 04 is basically asking if you can replicate the old Isabel fishing rod glitch with Joker's grappling hooks. For those of you who aren't aware of this Isabel glitch, I made a nice compilation of its effects on all items, and I'll throw that in a card on the top right of the screen. Just be warned that it is an old video. On to Joker, I tried it for a while, shifting positionings and timings, but it doesn't seem that the glitch will work with the grappling hook. I've gotta say, I'm really disappointed, but I'm also not surprised at all. If you do discover any stupid glitches though, be sure to tell me. I do consider glitches to be pointless facts after all. Now I want to go over a large chunk of questions I got, all of them regarding Wonder Wing. People have asked me if various moves work against it, and I'm here to say that the move is basically the same as Kuklang in terms of its invincibility. What I mean is that, just like Kuklang, the move is invincible to everything outside of one thing. For Kuklang, that one thing is Metal Slash. For Wonder Wing, that one thing is any type of grab. Meaning if a move isn't counted as a grab, it's impossible to hit Banjo-Kazooie out of Wonder Wing with it. Even Final Smashes. There are, however, a few Final Smashes that do count as grabs and will work on Banjo-Kazooie during Wonder Wing. Here are a few examples. I was also curious if Metal Slash would work on Wonder Wing if they were metal, but it doesn't. I have a lot of hero facts for this video, as usual, so I'm saving them for the end. Since we're still on Banjo-Kazooie, I want to briefly mention something that I'm sure most of us know by now, but for those of you who don't, as stated by King Ant-Man, when Kirby copies Banjo-Kazooie, he uses a stuffed Kazooie toy to shoot out the projectile. It becomes especially obvious if you take the time to pause the game and look at it. Speaking of Kirby and projectiles though, Binary Cat says that if Kirby loses his copy ability, the projectile that he sent out will disappear as well. I found this easiest to visualize with Snake's grenades. Watch how they just vanish from existence. Here are a few other examples. Vizio KLM asks if you can bottle flip with the fairy bottle. Satanic Snickerdoodle here is saying that Wario can ride another Wario's bike. Normally, Wario can get back on his own bike if he inputs side special when he's near it. However, it seems that all other Wario players have access to this, even if it's not their own bike. So, if you're fighting another Wario, you can take 2 bikes in the span of mere seconds. Cause why the fruity heck not? Oh yeah, fruits! In our last video, we saw that Pac-Man's fruit doesn't change size when he does. The same person who brought that fact to my attention, Name, also says that if Villager or Isabelle pocket fruit, it'll be smaller than normal for some reason. It's really easy to tell here. And just like Pac-Man, the fruit size won't change for Isabelle or Villager if they change size. Oh, also, it seems Pac-Man can't charge his fruit if Isabelle unpockets it, but if she puts it back in her pocket, Pac-Man is free to keep charging. Before we move on, I was informed of another move that doesn't change size with the character. Orbic here tells me that Bowser Jr.'s Mecha Koopa stays the same size as well. It's not as funny to me if you use it when you're big, but when you're small, you produce an item even bigger than you. Now that's just downright goofy. Alright, speaking of goofy, Jay Goofy here is asking if Luma can die in one hit. In my last video, I showed how witch time stacks with the timer effect, causing you to go even slower. I got a lot of questions asking to see what else stacked, so my first instinct was to try out Swirlix with timer. From what I can gather, you cannot stack Swirlix with the timer, but for unique reasons. It seems whenever the opponent switches between not being in Cotton Spore to being in it, or vice versa, the timer effect will go away. It's almost like how a negative times a negative equals a positive. They seem to cancel each other out sometimes. However, witch time seems to stack with Swirlix just fine. The timer and Shadow do not seem to stack. However, witch time and Shadow do stack. What I saw though was that Shadow and Swirlix interact the same as timer and Swirlix do. However, it'll just negate Shadow's slowdown, not the freeze at the end. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to stack witch time, the timer, Swirlix, and Shadow. Also, I assume that Hero's Hocus Pocus Backfire would act the same as a timer in all of these stacking pairs. Please understand that I'm not going to test it with everything. Speaking of Hero though, I'm going to get into the hero stuff again, a subject I'm qualified to teach as a certified hero main. Before I neglect saying this in another video, I'm just going to mention something that I found out about Snooze. Normally, if you use it on an airborne opponent, they'll fall asleep in the air, simple as that. But, if you happen to hit the opponent into Snooze, it won't do anything. Now, I'm trying to think, but I can't conjure up a real reason for this. What, it prevents Snooze combos? Like those will be broken? Well, whatever. What they did think about was absorbers, like Ness and Lucas. They can absorb Snooze just fine, but it won't heal anything. And with Game & Watch, you fill up the oil tank with a weak amount of damage. Also, what I discovered while doing this is that Oil Panic will cover you with oil for a split second. Neat. You can counter Snooze too. It'll just do what seems to be the minimum damage a counter can produce. Now, a few Kuklang questions. I had a ton of people ask me if Kuklang can spike in the air as it's falling, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, it doesn't. And it doesn't even do that much shield damage. The move is very similar to Kirby's down B in terms of knockback, inability to spike, and shield damage. Gemrock asks if rushing water from Kalos will push Hero and Kuklang. In my first Pointless Hero Facts video, I showed that wind doesn't affect Kuklang, so I didn't think that water would. However, apparently it does. So do try to avoid that. Malachi Gray asks if Hero will take damage from a flower while in Kuklang. I honestly didn't think that he would, but lo and behold, he certainly does. This is also the case for the curse effect of Joker's side B, and also for when Hero poisons himself with Hocus Pocus. Oh, and I also discovered that the invisibility effect of Hocus Pocus stacks with Kuklang. NumCube is inquiring about the effects of Inkling's ink with Kuklang. After labbing, I saw that you cannot ink a hero in Kuklang. And if an inked hero goes into Kuklang, the ink effect will be removed entirely, which is faster than just letting it disappear normally. Moving on to Metal Slash. Krungle here is asking if Metal Slash will instantly break King K. Rool's shield. It's an interesting idea and concept because his belly armor seems to be made of some kind of metal, but unfortunately the move does basically nothing. And yes, you can activate his belly armor with his side taunt. Similarly, and even more interestingly, Gaspa Strike asks if Metal Slash can kill Metal Face. I mean, he's got metal in the name after all. I thought it'd be super cool to test out, but unfortunately you cannot one-shot Metal Face. I even tried it on his face. I guess that's not metal either. Well, really, the material is a bit more special, but I won't really get into that. Just play Xenoblade Chronicles for yourself, or get Xenoblade Chronicles Deluxe Edition when it comes out, which, by the way, you should definitely do. I didn't want to leave it off there, so I did check to see if Metal Slash at least did more damage. I did the same kill setup twice, the control group with the jab in the middle, and the experiment group replacing that jab with Metal Slash. The amount of damage Metal Slash does is not different. Speaking of the damage not being different though, in stamina battles, no matter how high or low your HP is, you'll always take the same knockback. According to Kuragane, in stamina matches, your hypothetical percent is about 20. So this got me thinking about how it works with THWACK or THWACK. Do they function as if the opponent is at 20%? Or does it scale similarly to a normal match? A quick test showed me that having full health made me not really die much at all to THWACK or THWACK, but having very little health made me die almost every single time. I'm not in any position to get the exact success rates or the equation of success or any of that, but my question's still been answered. Even though knockback is treated as if you're at 20%, THWACK or THWACK's success rates still depend on your HP. Something to note is that it's all relative to your starting percent. If you start with 200 HP and hit someone at 10 HP, they'll very likely die. But if you start with 10 HP and hit someone at 10 HP, they'll very likely live. Finally, as Nebulos states, you can get an insta-KO on Squirtle while they're in withdraw, and they'll be killed as normal, but there won't be any zoom in. No pomp and circumstance, just a quick and sudden death. Oh yeah, speaking of sudden death, thanks for watching as always. I still have a lot of facts from myself and from you all that I'll be using in my next video. So leave your own questions or facts in the comments. And definitely subscribe for more nonsense. Stay casual.